Hi guys, in this video I'm just going to continue on the topic of Westerners' fascination with Tibet. Today's presentation is based on my readings of several books like this one, and some personal experiences as well. In 1989, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet. Following that, the Free Tibet movement reached its peak. Everywhere on the streets of Kathmandu, you could see the Free Tibet signs and flags. It was during this time that I first got acquainted with the cause. Like many city dwellers disillusioned with mundane city life, I was captivated by the Himalayan landscape and the colorful, exotic culture. And to top it off, there's a tragic, compelling tale that appealed to every righteous and self-righteous soul. Well, the popular narrative was quite simple. In 1950, the People's Liberation Army marched into Tibet. Tibetan forces put up a futile struggle against the much better equipped PLA. In early 1951, the Tibetan government dispatched a 5-man delegation to Beijing to negotiate terms for peace. The Tibetan delegation was forced to sign the 17-point agreement. The PLA then deployed military bases, outposts, and administrative staff in Lhasa, effectively controlling Tibet. What followed was a pragmatic move to modernize Tibet. Insensitive Chinese policies and actions triggered rebellions. Convinced that his freedom or even his safety were under threat, the 14th Dalai Lama fled to India in 1959 and has been residing there in exile ever since. Without going into the details behind the highly simplified narrative, many idealistic Westerners lapped it up like a romantic tale or a Disney movie of good versus evil. With the hippie movement having simmered down, aimless Western youths embraced the Tibetan cause. Central to this love affair was the image of the benevolent, compassionate, or even saintly Dalai Lama and the exotic appeal of Tibetan Buddhism. Little did they know how this romantic view of Tibetan Buddhism and a sympathetic view towards all exiles would make them vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. I've made another video on this Western obsession with the Tibetan cause while talking about the book Virtual Tibet. Now go check the video out. In this video, I'll focus mainly on this book. The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying was first published in September 1992 in the US and was ostensibly written by a learned Lama of the Rigpa school by the name of Sogyal Rinpoche. The book explores the message of impermanence, evolution, karma and rebirth, the nature of mind and how to train the mind through meditation, how to follow a spiritual path in this day and age, the practice of compassion, how to care for and show love to the dying, and the spiritual practices for the moment of death. The book received high acclaim and spent several weeks at the top of the bestseller lists. Naturally, its author became an instant megastar. Interest in Tibetan Buddhism led to heightened sympathy towards the Tibetan cause. But who was Sogyal Rinpoche? He was actually born Sonam Gyaltsen Laka in 1947 to a wealthy Tibetan family of traders in Kham, Tibet. Fearful of being targeted by the Chinese government, his family decided to leave Tibet in 1955. They arrived in the kingdom of Sikkim before it was annexed by India in 1956. Having abandoned their possessions in Tibet, they were paupers in their new home. The young Sogyal attended a Catholic school in Kalimpong, India, and then studied in Delhi University. Despised and humiliated by wealthy Tibetans, Sogyal's mother urged him to seek his fortunes in the West. Sogyal went to the UK, where he befriended undergraduates at Cambridge. He was dressed like a hippie and became popular with youngsters who had a taste for the exotic Orient. He drank, he partied, he had sex partners, but he also gave talks and presentations on Tibetan Buddhism at a karate dojo. Now, in those days, everything was quite informal, and his followers saw him as just a friend. Sogyal first raised suspicion when John Driver, a Westerner well-versed in Tibetan texts, found out that Sogyal was not translating a Tibetan teacher's lecture correctly. But as more and more uninitiated Westerners pursued the trend, Sogyal and his associates restyled and reinvented his public persona. He pulled on a maroon robe and became known as Sogyal Rinpoche. Meditation courses conducted by him were advertised in The Guardian. Newspapers started reporting on him, mistakenly identifying him as a monk. Sogyal's sessions were advertised as seminars and courses. As momentum gathered, an American newspaper portrayed him to be an incarnate Lama from Tibet who had been trained since childhood. Some reported that he was a personal friend of the Dalai Lama, which became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Interestingly, even though many people who knew him earlier could have blown his cover, nobody did. Sogyal's own claims, the eagerness of ignorant reporters to write a good story, and the gullibility of followers of a trendy faith gave the myth a life of its own. Sogyal and his team didn't even need to fabricate his credentials and achievements anymore. The ambitious Sogyal saw a bigger market in America. In 1975, he visited Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche in Boulder, Colorado. The latter founded Shambhala, which claimed to be the sacred path of the warrior. Trungpa was known to be a misogynist living in luxury with lots of alcohol and Western women standing in line to sleep with him. Sogyal could see a bright future for himself in America. Of course, Sogyal was a shrewd influencer even before the days of social media. In 1979, he founded Rigpa, which quickly went global. Sogyal understood Westerners and repackaged Vajrayana or Tantric Buddhism into a belief system that appealed to them. He was also a great performer on stage, hypnotizing the audience like a cult leader and gaslighting those who questioned him. In an age when Westerners started to question conventional wisdom vis-a-vis issues of life and death, the Tibetan Book of the Living and Dying, a book believed to be written by him, had sold 3 million copies and was translated into 24 languages. Many followers of Rigpa had deep-seated problems which they hoped to solve by serving Sogyal. Some were struggling to find closure for emotional events. Some believed that Sogyal could perform miracles and cure cancer. Undercover journalists reported that the institution was actually dysfunctional and unsustainable. Privately, Sogyal behaved like a medieval monarch who never had to lift a finger to do anything. He had a harem and submissive female followers who endured his verbal, physical, and sexual abuse. Meanwhile, Sogyal's good friend, Trungpa Rinpoche, founder of Shambhala, was known for his eccentric, crazy wisdom style, was reportedly indulging in alcohol and sex with many of his students, often without consent. Survivors have described experiencing physical and emotional torment. I've even come across a social media post trying to explain that in Tantric Buddhism, the teacher's job is to destroy your ego and not make you feel comfortable. Can you think of a better example of gaslighting? Trungpa did not live to see the success of the man he inspired. He died in 1987, succeeded by the promiscuous bisexual HIV-positive Osel Tenzing, also died after Trungpa. In 1990, after the death of Osel from AIDS, he was succeeded by Trungpa's son, Sakyong Mipam. The boy's mother was a nun. For years, nobody blew the whistle on him, even though there was news that some misbehaving lamas had infected their followers with HIV. Other Tibetan lamas were reluctant to censure the lascivious lamas. There seemed to be some mutual understanding between them, also not forgetting that Sogyal was wealthy and was often able to sponsor the other lamas. There was also this mysticism surrounding the practice of Vajrayana, where seemingly decadent and indulgent ways could be explained away as part and parcel of an alternative path towards rapid enlightenment. In 2017, the bubble finally burst. 8 senior Rigpa members wrote a long letter to Sogyal and 1,000 other Rigpa members. They addressed him by his original name, Sogyal Taka, and detailed the physical, psychological, and sexual abuse of female followers, sometimes to the extent of pimping them out to other lamas. Now, the letter is reproduced in this book. I shall not read it, but there's a link to a copy on my blog in the description. It was also revealed that Sogyal Rinpoche's best-selling book was actually written by his students, Andrew Harvey and Patrick Gaffney. It's interesting to think that Sogyal probably didn't see this coming. His fanatical followers dismissed the accusations as lies, but the response from Rigpa and Sogyal's stepping down and exile in Thailand stoked public suspicions. The media suddenly snapped out of the trance and started publishing investigative reports. Later that year, a Tibetan holy man censured Sogyal. He was none other than the Dalai Lama himself, but some found it too little, too late. I feel some of these Lama institutions have some sort of influence of the feudal system. That is outdated and must end, that feudal influence. Then eventually a Lama institution creates Lama politics. That's very bad. An individual Lama's disgrace doesn't matter, but it gives a very bad impression about a monastery or a monk. Very bad. So we must pay more attention. You should not say, "This is my guru. What the guru says, I must follow." That's totally wrong. Buddha himself mentioned, "You must examine my teaching." Similarly, if one particular Lama says something, you examine whether this goes well according to Buddha's teaching or according to the circumstances in society. Then you must follow. If the Lama says something, if you investigate and it's not proper, then you should not follow the Lama's teaching. Even Dalai Lama's teaching, if you find some contradiction, you should not follow my teaching. As far as a Galupa is concerned, Lama Tsongkhapa clearly mentioned, if a Lama teaches something that is against the Dharma, it should be avoided and opposed. If the Lama's teaching is in accord with the Dharma, it should be followed. If it is in discord with the Dharma, it should not be followed. Many years ago in Dharamsala, at a Western Teachers Conference, some Western Buddhist teachers mentioned some Zen masters and Tibetan Buddhist masters had created a very bad impression among people. Then I told them, these people do not follow Buddha's advice, Buddha's teaching. We cannot do. So the only thing is to make it public. Through newspapers, through the radio, make it public. These lamas, although they don't care about Buddha's teaching, they may care about their face. I told them at the conference almost 15 years ago, I think. Now recently, Sogyal Rinpoche, my very good friend, but he is disgraced. So some of his own students have now made public their criticisms. His Holiness had been aware of Sogyal's misdemeanors but failed to censure him and save brainwashed devotees from unnecessary suffering. However, one of the Lamas who defended Sogyal was Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche. Using language that bordered on vulgarity, he accused Sogyal's critics of trying to play victim. Then again, less popular Lamas have accused Dzongsa and Sogyal as traitors of Vajrayana. Rigpa came under investigation by the French authorities, and Sogyal became a fugitive in Thailand. He was later diagnosed with cancer. Meanwhile, Trungpa's son, Sakyong Mipam Rinpoche, inherited leadership at Shambhala in 1990 at the age of 27 and was later accused of similar patterns of sexual and emotional abuse, even though there is little indication of that in his motherhood public speeches, which still drew an impressive audience until he was investigated for sexual abuse of his followers. The awakening continues. In 2018, Lama Tempa Dagye, a senior monk at Kagyu Ling, a Buddhist center in Dijon, France, became the first ordained Lama in the developed world to be imprisoned. Lama Tempa Dagye was held in provisional detention following allegations of rape and sexual violence by 4 women. Now, one woman alleged that she was aged 9 when she was first raped by the Lama. French police have also launched an investigation into financial irregularities at the center. Disastrously, the Dalai Lama, after meeting up with survivors from abuse by Tibetan Lamas, commented somewhat flippantly that it was nothing new. Westerners expected His Holiness to take drastic actions, but they were in for a culture shock. Respect for Tibetan Buddhism hit a new low. As the Dalai Lama pointed out so candidly, the root of the problem lies in a Tibetan society that has been glorified by the romantic Westerners' imagery of Shangri-La. Far from what the starry-eyed Westerners had imagined, Tibet was a theocracy mired in medieval feudalism throughout the first half of the 20th century. The 13th Dalai Lama presided over a tumultuous period covering the British Young Husband expedition, the fall of Imperial China, and the Sino-Tibet War. Contrary to the perception of the Romantics, Tibet was extremely hostile to foreigners throughout most of its history. In fact, there was a great purge of foreigners which took place in 1905. Tibetans massacred Chinese officials, French missionaries, and Tibetan converts. Tibetan monks violently opposed Catholics, razing the Catholic missions churches. They practically slaughtered all Catholic missionaries and Qing dynasty officials. In 1930, the Tibetan army invaded Chinese-controlled territories in Qinghai and Sichuan. They were defeated by the nationalist army. As we can see, Tibet was not always the victim. For longer than there were Dalai Lamas, Tibet was a reclusive medieval society ruled by an autocratic clergy and despotic landlords. Peasants had no rights, and disobedience earned them gruesome punishments. The 13th Dalai Lama died in 1933. In 1937, a boy by the name of Lamo Tonduk was identified as the 14th Dalai Lama by a team led by the regent Reting Rinpoche. The regent skipped the golden urn lot drawing ceremony that was required by the former Qing dynasty to confirm the identity of the newly installed Dalai Lama. Although the Qing dynasty was defunct by then, the Chinese government in Nanjing was displeased that they had not been consulted. His ill-gotten wealth and promiscuity exposed, Reting Rinpoche was forced to resign and was replaced by Taktra Rinpoche. A power struggle ensued, with Reting trying to regain control with gunfights on the streets of Lhasa. Reting was arrested and tortured till he died in prison. The young 14th Dalai Lama was witness to all this, as we can see in the movie Kundun. The nationalist government of China practically lost control of Tibet after being invaded by Japan. It was then mired in civil war. The communists won in 1949, and the PLA then marched into Tibet the very next year. Truth be told, Tibetan serfs actually cheered for the Chinese. The Tibetans who were most unhappy about this liberation were the elite. Unknown to many Westerners, Tibetan society had some semblance of a caste system. The highest order were the living Buddhas, senior monks, and the aristocrats. Their lives were valued by the weight of gold. People in this caste saw themselves as above and beyond laws and morality that bind the commoners. Outrageous as it may seem to people in a civilized world, people that the aristocrats had raped were deemed to have gained realization. People they killed were deemed to have been liberated. Now, the second caste included lower-ranking monks, officials, and merchants. They too had the right to beat and torture their servants. The third caste included manual laborers, women, butchers, blacksmiths, and hunters. Of course, there were castes within every caste, and the top caste, which constituted less than 5% of the population, owned all the land. 95% of the Tibetan population were in effect serfs. The feudal theocracy of Tibet exploited and subjugated 95% of the population. The first caste had the right to buy and sell individuals as if they were animals. When the communists arrived, they could have reformed the existing system and gained the support of the majority. Unfortunately, the communists failed to see the value of traditional Tibetan culture and chose to destroy it, leading to large numbers of Tibetans rebelling or escaping to live in exile in India or Nepal. Pre-invasion Tibet is perhaps best illustrated by the book An Explorer's Adventures in Tibet by Arnold Henry Savage Landor. The synopsis of the book on Amazon reads, quote, "Through vivid descriptions and captivating narratives, Landor shares his encounters with the people, landscapes, and cultures of Tibet during the early 20th century. An Explorer's Adventures in Tibet is more than a travelogue. It is a first-hand account of a Westerner's odyssey into the heart of the Himalayas, capturing the awe-inspiring beauty and spiritual richness of Tibet. Join Landor on this literary escapade where each page unfolds a new chapter of exploration, offering readers a rare glimpse into a world where ancient traditions and breathtaking landscapes converge in an unforgettable tapestry of adventure." Now, if you believe that, you're going to be surprised if you actually read the book like I have. Now, the author described Tibetans as filthy, inhospitable savages. Lamas, religious teachers, ordered shootings, tortures, and executions. Now, after he was rescued, Landor gave a very detailed statement, which I have reproduced on my website. The link is in the description. The life of Gendun Chompel, who was born just before the British invaded Tibet, is also very revealing of what Tibet was like sometime after the Young Husband expedition. He became a monk at a monastery in Amdo, where he was expelled for asking inconvenient questions about the sexuality of the monks there. He moved to Lhasa, where he found an opportunity to study and translate ancient texts. After being expelled, Chopel drank heavily, visited brothels, and wrote erotic poems. But he knew and understood the ancient texts better than any of the lamas of his time. He revealed the irony that he was expelled from the monastery, even though he had kept his monastic vows and remained celibate while he was a monk. But many of those who stayed in the monastery were not. He candidly remarked that everyone liked and wanted sex, but nobody admitted it. When he returned to Tibet from India, he was imprisoned but allowed to drink and write because he was a peerless Tibetan scholar. He didn't live long enough to suffer from the Chinese occupation, as he soon died of alcoholism. Now, the Tibetan diaspora has almost never given me a bad impression. Whether it's in Kathmandu or Darjeeling, they are some of the nicest people I've met. But that persona developed only recently under foreign influence. For most of its history, Tibet was not a peaceful and hospitable place. It had an entrenched hierarchical system where individuals or families at the top were decidedly above the law. When the exiles and refugees first arrived in a foreign land, they lost their social status. They had to be humble and compliant as they were living off the generosity of their host. But when donations started pouring into their communities based overseas, some of them got enterprising. There was a huge market for spiritualism. They capitalized on Western society's disillusionment and spiritual poverty, repackaging Tibetan culture and Buddhism into something that fascinates yesterday's curious hippies. Charismatic gurus who were former refugees now live in luxury, managing wealthy religious institutions. When the gurus show their true colors, the old theocratic Tibet returns to clash, not just with Western values, but with the laws that maintain order in modern societies where everyone has rights. The modern world has gone through numerous reforms to arrive at what it is today. Whether the followers insist on their masters adjusting to modern society or surrender themselves to the raw Tibet, they should do it with their eyes wide open and not just try to justify practices which are clearly against freedom, democracy, and human rights.